questions. But we at the top of the hour, second half of the Beat Break Morning Show. You can also check us out on Podcast FM 87 FM, 101 The Vibe FM, as well as on 101 The Vibe FM in Louisville, Kentucky. We are still streaming live on YouTube. Beat Break Radio, be a subscriber there. Honey, the Flow Television Network, Sean Garvey. Let's get into clip, the interview clip of Mark Summers and him talking about how he was, and I'm using air quotes here, ambushed, being on Quiet on the Set, the dark side of kids TV. And this video is courtesy of E News, Entertainment News. So let's go ahead and play a clip of it, and then we'll talk more Dr. Alexis and Patty on Quiet on the Set, the dark side of kids TV. Let's play a clip.
In the early 90s, Nickelodeon was kids.
But they did a bait and switch on me. They ambushed me. They never told me what this documentary was really about.
Mark Summers is sharing his side of the story. 2 weeks after the release of the docuseries Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, which details allegations of sexual abuse and a toxic workplace at Nickelodeon, the former Kids Network host says he was misled about the true nature of the series, revealing on Elvis Duran in the morning show April 5th that he was, quote, ambushed.
I got called by these folks saying they wanted to do a documentary on Nickelodeon. And so I said, sure. And I went there and they asked me what I thought of Nick. And the first 10 or 12 seconds, from what I understand of this documentary, are me saying all these wonderful things. But they did a bait and switch on me. They ambushed me.
Mark, who hosted Nickelodeon's hit children's game show Double Dare from 1986 to 1993, goes on to allege that the producers of the Investigation Discovery series weren't upfront with him.
They never told me what this documentary was really about.
No way.
And so they showed me a video of something that I couldn't believe was on Nickelodeon. And I said, well, let's stop tape right here. What are we doing? Well, we're doing this thing. Do you know this guy? And all this kind of stuff. And I left.
The comedian, who only appears in the first episode of the docuseries, reflects on his time at Nickelodeon. However, after he's shown clips from Victorious, Zoe 101, and other shows run by Dan Schneider, viewers see Mark appear to become confused.
Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato.
Did that air on Nickelodeon?
The 72-year-old goes on to explain to host Elvis Duran that he walked away from Quiet on Set after being told what it was really about, stating that he never met Dan or knew what was happening on his shows. However, the former Unwrapped host then reveals that producers told him he was going to be featured in the docuseries anyways.
So I got a phone call about 6 weeks ago saying, you're totally out of the show. And I went, great. Then they called me about 4 weeks ago and said, well, you're in it, but you're only in the first part of it because you talked about the positive stuff of Nickelodeon. What they didn't tell me, and they lied to me about, was the fact that they put in that other thing where they had the camera on me when they ambushed me.
Quiet on Set directors Mary Robertson and Emma Schwartz tell E! News in a statement, "We are clear with each participant about the nature of our projects."
All right. Well, once again, that video clip is courtesy of E! News. This is the Beat Break Morning Show special edition of the Beat Break Morning Show, as we touch on so many layers behind the recent docuseries that aired on both Discovery and HBO Max, Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, the 5-part investigation docuseries that explores the toxic work environment on several Nickelodeon shows and the alleged abuse child stars endured while working on them. And what you just saw was a video clip of Mark Summers detailing the series of events that led up to him being on this docuseries, and then finding out later that he was quote unquote ambushed by the people behind Quiet on the Set docuseries, not knowing that these horrific things happen on the set at Nickelodeon. These happened way after Mark Summers' exit from Nickelodeon. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking to media psychologist and founder of Wit and Reason, Dr. Alexis Marino, as well as actress, singer, songwriter, and model Patty Crawford joining with us on this important conversation. Couple of things here. So Mark Summers also appeared on The Orange Years. He actually got more scenes and more talk time on The Orange Years than he did on Quiet on the Set docuseries. And what I find it to be interesting, Dr. Alexis and Patty, is that he didn't know that he was getting ambushed. And I would be, if I was in Mark Summers' shoes, if I can just be very transparent, if I was in Mark Summers' shoes and I just came off of doing one documentary and I'm asked to do another, I mean, would it be wrong for me to feel suspicious? Because I would think that Mark Summers, like, I've already did a documentary on the Orange Years. Like, why am I asked to do another one? What do you think should have happened, Dr. Alexis, in that particular situation? Do you think Mark Summers, I mean, a very intelligent, smart guy, been in the business for a long time, what do you think could have happened or should have happened that could have avoided Mark Summers from being on Quiet on the Set?
Yeah, I'm a little confused about his reaction. It seems almost defensive. And I didn't really question, what he said about his experience being on the show. I mean, we all have positive experiences associated with Nickelodeon, and that's okay. You could hold both truths up. You could have a positive work experience and someone else that's working alongside you or someone else cast on a show after you leave can have a horrific experience. Mm-hmm. And so the language that, I was ambushed seems a little dramatic to me. I appreciated, as a viewer at least, the natural response that we got to see from him, having been someone who worked on Nickelodeon prior to seeing how it evolved later after him. I liked seeing that it was a natural, organic response for him. That's saying, what is this? Was this even aired? That to me, I don't understand why he would be defensive about his interview.
What about you, Patty? Like, go ahead, Patty.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, was he not privy to, some of the things that, were happening to these young people?
Seems like that's what he was. I mean, it was in the news.
Like he was trying to remove himself,
right?
So let's just quarterback this. So he was asked to be on a docuseries. They didn't say the name of what the docuseries probably was, still somewhere in the development stages and trying to figure out what to actually call the docuseries. But it gave me the impression that they asked him to come on and speak the positive side of Nickelodeon. I guess Mark Summers was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And then he come on, he says what he says in the first part of the docuseries. And when he said ambush, or quote, I'm using air quotes again, ambush, in going back into that video where he look on his iPad or the iPad given to him and it's showing him clips of Dan Schneider and all the stuff that's happening, it threw him off and he was like, well, what is this? I've never seen this before. Like, did this happen on the Nickelodeon set? Right. So he walked into something that he did not know anything about. Right. But if you was in Mark Summers' shoes, Patty, I mean, I would think you would ask questions before signing on
Absolutely.
to a project like that. Yeah.
I would have to know more, explicit details as to what's going to take place and what is this all about. And I would want to be as informed, as I possibly could be. So I definitely agree with that, because it was kind of like, I guess he was really wanting to, remove himself, which of course, from that negative element. But yeah, it was definitely confusing. But I go along with what you said, that he really should have been more informed about what was going to be taking place in that documentary.
And even in the clip that we saw, courtesy of E News, we also saw a little bit of footage of Ariana Ariana Grande.
I hate
Um,
people playing it.
yeah.
Like, let's just take all the clips that we're saying are concerning, put them together in a mashup, and just keep them on repeat and keep on exposing. I mean, if you're really that concerned about the content, why are you still playing it repeatedly? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's counterproductive to the cause.
Well, I mean, do
I
you
agree.
think do you think though, Dr. Alexis? I mean, that's interesting. Do you think that it was their way of, I guess, circling back to something that maybe some of us as kids find it to be funny or weird or questionable, and then now we looking at an adult with adult glasses, we now seeing it and be like, oh, okay, that's what it really meant. Do you think they did it to where they were trying to say, hey, this is what happened. We have to circle back to it because it causes some form of mental trauma or mental anxiety
So
to
we're going to keep
get.
on playing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, how do you like
So,
expound on that just for a moment?
yeah, I get showing it once or quickly, as an example of what they're referring to. I mean, there was the Ariana Grande clips with the potato and with the water, and then also a bunch of squirting, liquids and stuff into people's faces. There was a lot of those clips. And if you're just trying to explain your point, you explain your point, and then you could move on and you could reference it. But now, not only did they repeat, at least if I remember correctly, that Ariana Grande clips at least twice, if not multiple times throughout this docuseries, you are then becoming part of the problem. And then now we have it on, now we have those clips on our social media feeds, and now we have them in, where did you get this from? E Entertainment?
E News, yeah.
Even people who aren't choosing to watch this type of content and expose themselves to it are now having this in their face. And has Ariana Grande said anything?
She has not spoken about it. She
That's
has been
humiliating.
very yeah.
So that's also part of the problem is if we're going to say
that definitely is. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. But the history of Nickelodeon, if we can be honest again, like it's always been weird, especially even though I enjoyed the shows as a kid, it's always been weird because I still at 40, I still don't understand the concept of the slime. Like I know that's what Nickelodeon is known for, right? The slime coming down on your face and everything. And it just seemed like the people, especially Dan Schneider, it seemed like they wanted to carry on the tradition of Nickelodeon being that place of not only entertainment but weird activities happening to kids, of getting slimed and all this other stuff. But now it went to a whole new level of the foot fetish that we saw multiple times on some of the shows that Dan Schneider was responsible of, to the potato we saw with Ariana Grande and a few other shows that we've seen a lot of weird stuff happen. So, I just wanted to point that out because it's always been some form of weirdness within Nickelodeon. I mean, don't you agree, Patty?
Yeah, totally. That's why, early on, I said I could not. I just really could not get into the shows.
Well, you
it was
said
just
PBS.
like,
I mean, you said Sesame Street and.
I tried to give it a shot, but something was a little off kilter. So I said, "Yeah, I'm good." And the slime thing, I just that never resonated with at all. No.
You know what was also so weird too, and this was on the Orange Years, going back to the Orange Years, because you had the cast, the guys from Pete and Pete, The Adventures of Pete and Pete, and it was made to be a dark comedic type of show, but there was
Mm-hmm.
some weird moments that I felt were, and I'm surprised they didn't talk about this on Quiet on the Set, but there were some weird moments on The Adventures of Pete and Pete that could raise some eyebrows. Because I grew up watching The Adventures of Pete and Pete as well too. I mean, from the lady tattoo on the young kid's
Right.
arm and a few other things, you know. I mean, do you think in that docu-series, do you think it was some stuff that was left out, Dr. Alexis? Because I know you saw the entire thing as well as
Yeah.
you, Patty. Do you think there was some things that were left out from the docu-series that they could have had highlighted before Dan Schneider came into the picture?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they very lightly touched up on some of the inappropriateness that still kind of popped up in all these other shows. But it was very much glossed over, and they didn't touch up on anything that Quiet on Set got to. So it definitely seems more like a fluff piece and just focus on the positivity and nostalgia around it. But they mentioned in Double Dare, the kid who fell and almost broke his neck.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Hey Dude recording in like 120 something degree weather in the desert. Like those are horrible conditions to have to work in without AC. Pete and Pete, they mentioned Artie's tights, and I guess, and back then he didn't have a proper cup or coverage for his body parts. So they mentioned like some discomfort around that. And then they showed the clip of Kangaroo cartoon. Do you remember that one?
I remember that one. Yeah.
From the documentary, where the kangaroo cartoon was like walking around picking fruit from a bush and then accidentally picked what was apparently a testicle of some creature that was in the bush. Like, what is that? What is that? Why is that? Even if you're preteen or teens, like, why is that in a kid's cartoon? I could see that like in adult cartoons, but and then The Secret World of Alex
Mack,
one of my favorites as well. And then even as a kid, I recognized like she's morphing without clothes on, and she's standing behind that box naked. Like, why is this? Why can't you just morph with her clothes on? Like, why? So they're they very quickly statement and move on. With that.
So they were making it. So we now getting somewhere with this. We're getting somewhere with this. So would it be fair to say that this was kind of somewhat of a witch hunt, towards Dan Schneider and the three other guys, which we'll get into that also in just a few moments. Do you find it to be somewhat of a witch hunt during this docuseries?
I don't like using the terminology witch hunt when it's applied to men, when women were primarily brutally murdered, being accused of being witches historically. I was surprised that Quiet on Set was focused so much on Dan Schneider. Obviously he has engaged in toxic and abusive behaviors, and it's left a lot of viewers wondering, who else is involved? Like who hired him, multiple times, who were these other decision makers that were allowing this? We are functioning in a system here. He's not a man on an island. Someone gave him the power. So let's go ahead and keep on diving in more to what's causing all this. And what they did briefly mention on the Orange Years was the lack of regulation, which is such an unattractive word statement to say. But they said, like, hey, we were trusted with this content, and we were left up to our own creative ideas, and no one really proofed what we were doing or what we were writing, and we just we got away with a lot back then. And so that's even, you could see little tidbits of that scattered throughout all the other programs. But as Quiet on Set really highlighted, was that there was definitively more to discuss on his shows.
Very segue to Dan Schneider.
Yeah.
What do you think about his character now, Patty? Dan Schneider as a person. We're gonna play a short clip of his recent interview and give you all an update on what's happening with Dan Schneider. But what do you think overall of Dan Schneider, Patty, especially watching the docuseries and learning about his character and how he treated people on the set, not just kids, but also grown adults, staff members? What do you think about his character overall?
Well, I think he absolutely abused his position of power. Just a monster, really. No respect, for the safety of others. Like you said, young people, adults. I think he just really created an overall harmful environment for everybody. And it seems like he just doesn't even want to be held accountable for, the things that he's done, which is very, very sad.
You hear he's suing?
Not wanting to be, yeah. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, right, it's like he just wants to remove himself from, these crimes and these atrocities that he has committed. It was just crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
He's the victim. He's a victim.
So you think in the interview, and I was trying to get the interview up that he did recently. Did you think he was doing a lot of victim blaming in that interview?
I think so. I think so. Like I said, I think that he is just really, especially at this stage, I think he just wants to, remove himself as if that's, he just wants to apologize and move on with his life. And that's not how it works.
Must be nice.
There's no accountability.
If you had an opportunity, Dr. Alexis, to have a one-on-one conversation with Dan Schneider, I don't know if you would even want to be in the same room as Dan Schneider, especially after all the things that he was accused of doing on the set during his tour there. Like, how would you counsel him? How would you go about having a conversation with Dan Schneider?
I've been in the room with people who've done even more horrific things than Dan Schneider, so that wouldn't be a problem for me. And focusing on like what Patty's saying, focusing on that accountability. In his, and I saw a clip of his interview, so I'm excited to see what you have to show us. But even in the docuseries Quiet on Set, they had the text that come up with Dan Schneider's responses to things, and it quickly goes to like, hey, everything I did was scrutinized by other adults, and so displacing blame, minimizing what he's doing. I mean, if you're taking accountability for something, we're focusing on you, and we're going to look at every single thing, every single experience that people shared about you and how that impacted them, and what was your, number one, what is your even recollection of any of that? Do you remember behaving that way, or were you just so out of touch with, how you impacted other people that it was just like another Tuesday to you, and to the person that was in contact with you, it is scarred in their memory and has traumatized them for life. That's a concerning part. And so really sticking to every single experience that the targets of his abuse and toxic behaviors were left with. That would be something that we would be working through and focusing in on, because we're not just going to dismiss this kind of stuff and say, oh, it's in the past, or there was other people involved too. Okay, sure, that may be true. And we're focusing on you right now.
While we get the clip up, Dan Schneider, executive producer for several shows on Nickelodeon, including All That, Kenan and Kel, The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, the list goes on and on and on. He was the man in the later part of the Nickelodeon years. He sat down with one of the former child actors from one of his Nickelodeon shows, a one-on-one conversation that lasted almost 20 minutes. And he meaning Dan Schneider, was telling his side of what happened, but he was also apologetic in the interview. What was also interesting, going back to the docuseries, is that at the very beginning, they didn't really say much about Dan Schneider's childhood history, except for the fact that, I guess it would be fair to say that his parents, uh, I mean, I don't know how to describe it, Dr. Alexis, but it was very
I got it
weird.
noted. I got it noted here. I got to know some of his history.
I gotta know more. Like, was he abused as a child? Like, what happened when he was a child? Because it goes back to what I said about the cause and effect in the first hour of the show. Like, what is it that made you become the person that you are today? What are some of the things that you experienced, what you witnessed, that caused you to do these things to other people in your later years? And it's so very important that we tackle the mental side of things, the mental illness and the crisis in these type of vulnerable conversations, because I look at my past. I'm not going to say I had a perfect childhood, but I know that if I had witnessed things and seen things as a kid, because as kids we soak up everything as sponges. We're like sponges. We soak up everything, right? It could make me into the person that I'm not today. And I thank my community, I thank my mom and my positive influences for helping me become the man that I am today. But I just want to know what made Dan Schneider actually become the person that he is. I know he was a star on Head of the Class and then went on to be the executive producer for these iconic Nickelodeon shows, and helping to create the careers of Amanda Bynes, Drake Josh, Ariana Grande, so many others. But what was it about Dan Schneider in his childhood? So I wish the docu-series could have touched on that a little bit more.
You're asking all the right questions. And not just Dan Schneider, but dude, what about Brian and that other guy?
Yeah.
It's not sticking. I don't want it to stick.
Are you talking about Brian Peck?
Yeah.
Brian Peck. Yeah.
Brian
and then
and John
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
How they get to becoming the horrific people that they are today. And I want to be very clear that not everyone who has a childhood trauma or experiences childhood abuse, molestation, not everyone then automatically becomes an abuser or offender themselves.
Right.
So that's a cop-out. Excellent example of that is a lot of girls would experience abuse, and yet you don't see them offending, right? So we can't just say like, okay, well, maybe they're doing these types of things because they had trauma in their childhood or someone did that to them and they're just kind of carrying it on. That's a very lazy kind of hypothesis. It's actually far more complex than that. Our past is impactful in developing who we are throughout our lives and into our adulthood. There's 2 risk factors that we explore when we're conducting risk assessments of offenders or people. The static risk factors are the ones that you're asking about, Sean, which are the things that we can't control, including the things in our history and what we've experienced in our formidable years, when we're children and trying to learn and understand the world, and who we are and who other people are and how do we survive. Static factors would also be like even genetics or brain functioning, abilities, disabilities, like our things that we cannot change about our physical mind and body. And then you also have these dynamic factors, which are things that we can change, like the way we think about things, our belief systems, even our mood, our behaviors, culture. And there is a perfect storm of these risk factors that come together. And it seems like, again, textbook for Dan, John, and Brian, that they likely have some of those static risk factors from their history. And the perfect storm of it all is that they were placed in powers of control in a culture that allowed this stuff to happen, that enabled this to happen. And that's what's most upsetting to me, is that while we can't control and prevent everything, there's definitely more that we could do.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's play a clip. We're at the bottom of the hour on the Beat Break Morning Show as we unpack so much stuff in this conversation on child endangerment on the set, quiet on the set, the dark side of kids TV. We're going to play a little bit, and once again, this comes from E! News. We're going to play a little bit of the interview that Dan Schneider was a part of after the docuseries came out. Let's play a little bit of that clip and continue on with the conversation.
I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation.
Former Nickelodeon producer Dan Schneider issues a video apology following the release of Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. Schneider, who parted ways with the network in 2018, is speaking out in response to the Investigation Discovery series, which recently aired. During a video conversation with iCarly actor Bobby K. Bowman, also known as Boogie, posted on Schneider's official YouTube account, the ex-showrunner says,
Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult, me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret, and I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
Schneider produced some of Nickelodeon's most successful shows, including All That, The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, and iCarly. One element of the special focused on his asking crew members to massage Schneider on set, and Dan responds in the video with,
It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation. And even additionally, I apologize to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owe them an apology as well. Yeah.
Schneider.
Fast forward to now, Dan Schneider files a defamation lawsuit against Quiet on the Set. Schneider claims the docuseries, which aired in March, falsely portrayed him as a sexual abuser. Dr. Alexis, Patty, it's one thing to be apologetic and to say, well, this didn't happen, and I apologize, on. And then now you're suing the showrunners, the creators of Quiet on the Set, for defamation of character, accusing him of being a sexual predator, sexual abuser. What do you make out of this, Patty? Is it a form of hypocrisy at its finest, or is it because he's getting so much heat from this docuseries to where he got to now take legal action against the people that made this docu-series, because the more heat that you get, the more chances your career could end, and that could affect you financially. Let's say you, Patty.
And I don't even know why he would still have a career. I mean, who wants to work with this guy? I mean, to me, that's done. That's over. And once again, it's just this, delusional state of trying to act like you were not that person. You didn't do these things. I mean, he clearly needs a psychiatrist and then some.
Dr. Alexis, hello.
Alexis. The psychiatrist.
I would not want the lovely lady. I wouldn't want her to have to deal with that at all. I mean, this man is just complete garbage. That is just so sad. It's so pathetic, to watch. Again, it's just this lack of accountability. Like you said, on one end, I'm apologizing, and now I'm wanting to play the victim and sue everybody. But I mean, these are you did this, you created, this toxic environment. So, it's pretty pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And multiple times across multiple cast and crew. It wasn't just like a bad day. This was clearly years of patterns of behavior. And I'm sorry, I owe an apology. It falls very flat at this point.
That is not enough.
Yeah. And there's the holding accountability, and then seeking apologies is pretty self-serving in it of itself, because you want to relinquish any kind of discomfort that you might be experiencing from the reactions of your behavior. So he said, I feel very embarrassed. So even if you were to go out and apologize and seek forgiveness from people, that's more self-serving, because he doesn't want to feel like crap anymore.
Right. Yeah. He has a lot more work to do. I don't know if there's enough work for him to do to repair the things that were done. Yeah.
And then to turn around and sue. I was confused about that breaking news, because I was like, what is he talking about? It's very clear, who did what, so what show are you watching? What lens are you watching from that you feel attacked? Or
rose-colored lenses.
Yeah, what lens are you watching from? Is there something you need to do?
Absolutely.
And so just to add context, just in case for those that didn't get a chance or have not had an opportunity to watch the docuseries yet, there were a couple of scenes where you see Dan Schneider and a young Amanda Bynes embracing each other in a way where, if you look at it as if you was the father of Amanda Bynes, or maybe a brother or an uncle or somebody, you look at that and be like, I don't, that's not appropriate.
No.
Especially the one thing, and this what did it for me. The one thing where I saw Dan Schneider in a hot tub or a jacuzzi, whatever that looked like, with Amanda Bynes in a bathing suit. Okay, I mean, would it be, Dr. Alexis, is that to some extent a form of child sexual abuse, or what do we call that in that particular situation?
I mean, there didn't appear to be any physical contact. What I do want to make sure we get time for it is to educate your viewers and listeners about grooming behaviors.
Yeah.
Very clear-cut list of things that perpetrators do in order to manipulate the targets of abuse or molestation. One of them being kind of desensitizing touch, which is why the adults touching the children are I mean, you need to have, especially if you're acting together, very clear consent about what that is, but very casual touching and caressing, starting to try to like normalize these types of settings where like, look, this is okay for both of us to be, you know, in a hot tub together and talking about my power dynamics over you. Like it's that kind of stuff where it leaves that gut feeling like this is wrong, this is uncomfortable, this is inappropriate. And there's a reason for that. They apparently did an investigation, and there was no reports or they didn't have any findings of him engaging in actual sexual molestation like Brian or John. But we are getting into that area of grooming behaviors for children.
The grooming process.
And that in it of itself is unacceptable.
And we've heard that a lot. We heard of the term grooming a lot in the industry for a long time. I mean, even way before Dan Schneider or any of us knew who Dan Schneider was that came into the business. We've heard times of the superstar singer Usher being groomed by Diddy, who was Puff Daddy back in the day.
Right.
And you see all the things that Diddy is going through nowadays, and it results back to artists like Usher, who was just so young at the time when he got introduced to Puffy back in the day, and how he groomed him, and even the stories that Usher talked about in his interview with Howard Stern years ago. When you think about that, and then you also think about the earlier years in Hollywood of child actors. I remember listening to a podcast from comedian Godfrey, and he had a few others that talked about the Shirley Temples of the world, and these young actors in the 1930s and 40s when everything was black and white on television and in film, and they were prancing around naked, or in Shirley Temple's case, very sensual. You know, it was so many things that happened around that time where these kids, prancing around, whether it was naked or whether it was sensual or whatever. You look at that now and you be like, who idea was this to put these kids in this particular space, in this particular situation? Why do you, to Dr. Alexis, why do you think this is still happening, or is happening or happened now in the entertainment industry? Why do you think it's an ongoing cycle?
Yeah, it really comes down to culture, and people throw that word around so casually. And the thing is that it's a very real reality in our both individual and group psychology. We are just, our minds are just kind of made to, when we go into a space, we look around and we learn about our environment, and we gain insight about, like, okay, what are the norms here? What's okay? What's not okay? And we learn a lot just from observing people's behaviors. And especially if you don't have proper like insight or education that empowers you to know that you have your own self-worth, you have your own bodily autonomy, you have the right to consent, you have the right to disagree and to say no and to set boundaries. If you're not educated in that way, or raised or cared for in that way, and then you step into this environment where you're just trying to learn and assess what the rules are, and you're in this environment like the entertainment industry where people are enabling the sexualization of children, then a lot of people, it kind of comes like cultural groupthink, then it's like, so this is okay here, all right. And you even saw people processing that in the docuseries, as they reflected on their own behaviors, the behaviors of those around them. It's tough I can imagine how tough it is for them now with hindsight, looking back. And I really hope that they're not too hard on themselves, because once you're in it, it really screws with your psychology.
Yeah. And it's interesting, before we go over to Patty, and we want to definitely touch on wit and reason before we let both of you all go. But I remember before I came down here to Florida, there was this big news story of little girls that were taking pole dancing classes in Atlanta. And I saw video clips of that. It went viral on social media. And what you alluded to just a moment ago, Dr. Alexis, this has become normalized. This is part of the culture of grooming kids, no matter if they're little boys or little girls. It's the culture of grooming kids so young in these adult spaces, to where years and years later they're traumatized by what they have been through, and the spaces that they have been in, because they've been groomed into those spaces of doing things that are outside of the norm as a little kid. Like, kids should be riding bicycles, kids should be climbing trees, being in tree houses, playing with dolls, playing with action figures, not pole dancing.
Right.
You know what I mean? But Patty, what do you make of this new? It's like a new normal, if you will.
Yeah,
It's like this new normal.
It's baffling to me how some of these parents seem to just turn their child over to the industry. I mean, that in itself has to be spoken to. You don't just turn your child over to be mentored, by this grown man that you don't know anything about. I mean, that is insane. I cannot wrap my head around that. A mentor, no. And which was anything but, so why is that acceptable? I think people just get, caught up with this life and dreams and the lights and everything that goes along with Hollyweird life.
There you go. You said weird. We used the word weird earlier, so I think it's fair you can call it Hollyweird.
Yeah, and they just they put so much trust into these people who are in these powerful positions, and it's just it's very scary to me. I certainly, if I had children, I definitely would not do that. I mean, there was talk in the docuseries about one of the guys. Maybe could have been Handy, or the dialogue coach, who drove a wedge between Josh was from Drake and Josh.
Drake Bell and Josh, yeah. And Drake Bell's father. Drake Bell's father.
Yeah, that was so
child and his father.
It's classic.
That is just, yes. I mean, and that is intentional. That is a part of, what Dr. Marina was saying about the grooming process. But like I said, you don't just hand your kids over to these people to just, have their way and just do whatever. No, you never do that at all. And then they have it set up to where they don't want the parents, to be anywhere near the set. Another red flag. So,
yeah.
It's almost like it's just being set up for this.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned something really notable, is that in Drake's experience, based off of what he shared in the docuseries, there was grooming behaviors happening on set, and the molestation occurred at the perpetrator's home.
Yes.
And so I feel so bad for his dad, because he warned Drake's mom, do not leave Drake alone with Brian. Yeah. And he saw warning signs, and he even tried to report it. and they gaslit him. And, you know, the challenging part is that, and I've worked as a child actor myself, we absolutely love it. And we just want to play and perform and create. And it freaking sucks that there are just these select few, let's keep that in mind. You have like thousands of people working in a production, and it's like these select few people that end up being the cancer of creating something so beautiful and fun and pure. And I hate to give them that much power and influence, where we say we have to remove our kids from their passions because of these select few. Let's just have better systems of evaluation and hiring to prevent the cancers from, you know, ruining our productions. How about that?
I like how you just bringing it back home, you know, something so pure and so beautiful to be something that we never thought in a million years would happen. And it just goes to show you that we living in a time right now where everything is dark, everything is being exposed, everything that happened in the 90s is now being exposed in 2023, 2024, and soon 2025 and stuff. It just makes you think that, you know, I don't know if I want to even watch television anymore. You know, I don't know if I even want to watch any form of entertainment and stuff, because from what I saw,
much less to be a part of the industry.
you know what I'm saying? I mean, look, I'm gonna tell you something. I understand, but listen, let me tell you all something. I watch more content-based shows than I watch sitcoms.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few sitcoms that I gotta go back and binge watch, but I watch more content shows, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I thought, you know, growing up, I'm gonna see nothing but sitcoms and television shows and stuff, and you know, in this dark period that we are in right now, and you blend that in with the political climate that we in, and just so many of these new norms that we are in, it just makes you like, hey, I need to call Dr. Alexis and set up a session.
Yes. I need a mental health break.
The discomfort, Sean, is a good thing. The fact that we're talking about this and that we're in a place where we could reflect back and see how we've evolved as a society and as practices and standards of care for children and even women in the workplace, it's incredibly uncomfortable and painful, and it's a good thing that it's happening. Because ignorance is bliss, but we have to get through this discomfort as part of change in order to get us to a healthier place.
Okay. Fair enough. Great point. Great point. And it brings us to Wit and Reason, of course. The founder of Wit and Reason. Tell us how parents and children that want to get into the industry, that want to get in this business and stuff, what can Wit and Reason offer to, and it doesn't just have to be children and child stars, it can be anybody of any age, but to avoid those nuances from happening to them, what can Wit and Reason offer to these actors?
So we have a variety of services for film, television. We're even going to be going into music as well. We go on set as a mental health coordinator to make sure that they have mental health policies and procedures and best practices in place for everyone, cast and crew of all ages involved. We also bring in mental health first aiders and train as many people on that set or in that production as mental health first aiders, so they know exactly what they're watching out for and the safest ways to intervene responsibly. If you could imagine on these sets and on Nickelodeon, we would have shut down any type of toxic behavior coming from Dan Schneider. Would have shut down any kind of inappropriate touching or conversations going on with John or Brian with the children actors. I mean, you have rights as actors, and you have an ability to make these types of requests. If I'm going to participate in this type of production, I want to make sure that not only do I have the right kind of candy that I want in the green room, but I want to make sure that we have at least a mental health first aiders, if not a mental health coordinator. Another thing that we also provide is performance coaching. Not just performance for actors, but any type of role that people need to be able to uphold on set and in those conditions. That gives us another opportunity to check in with people and see, like, how do you feel like you're handling this role, or what are you working through? What are some of the challenges you have in upholding this role, whatever your role is as an actor or director or producer. And so that's another way that we could kind of check in with people's not only functioning, but also wellness as well, because we're human beings and there's a lot that comes into anything we try to do.
Yeah. I want to collab with Patty and see if we can make some phone calls and knock on a few doors and get with some production studios and see, hey, do you need a therapist? Do you need somebody of this particular mental health profession to come in and talk to your staff, to your crew, to your employees, to your actors? Like, here you go. Because I think that this is not going to end unless we have a person of your profession come into the studio and provide that kind of assistance. I just read somewhere not long ago that Sylvester Stallone, I mean, an actor that we loved also, he said some questionable things to some of the extras and actors on the set of Tulsa King, and when you hear stories like that, it lets you know that they're lacking something. And when I mean they, I'm talking about the production studios. I'm talking about the people in leadership. They're lacking something. They lacking mental health professionals to come in and make sure that everybody does everything accordingly and that everybody is in a safe space and in a professional working environment.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I want to say that. Patty, any last thoughts? What do you want to say to an aspiring child star actor, a young girl, a young boy that wants to go into the business and they want to be the next Drake Bell, they want to be the next Amanda Bynes, the actors, because we can separate the characters from the real people in real life. I think it's fair we can separate them. But if they want to reach that certain type of stardom or that certain type of level in their acting career, what are some nuggets that you want to give to our young viewers and listeners that might be tuning in, listening to us?
Well, I think you definitely have to know, what you're going into, know who you're going to be working with, the production company, be able to do, in collaboration with your parents, do your research, your due diligence. For parents, you definitely have to be an advocate for your child. I mean, you love your child, you're responsible. You just have to be aggressive and assertive when it comes to, putting those protective measures in place to make sure that your child is not subjected, to the pitfalls that are there. I mean, they're out there. So, like I said, just be aware, be informed, and just have the freedom, to create and express and have fun, because it's not this like Dr. Marino said, it's just a handful, of these type of people in these situations, but I say until you come up against something that's questionable or doesn't feel right, I say just continue to be expressive, because it is a beautiful process and it is not supposed to be dark and negative and ugly or any of those things. And parents just be, when you have a child who have creative gifts, just be supportive, but be involved, stay involved, just stay on top of, what your child is getting into.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you see anything happen, grab your child by the arm and say, "Let's go. We are
Let's
getting the
go.
hell up out of here."
Exactly. Don't be afraid
Yeah,
to do that. Yes.
absolutely. One last thing before we end this very, very important conversation. I'm looking at the chat here on Facebook at Sean Garvey. You can follow me there as well. I had someone in the chat says, "Hey, have you ever been to the Nickelodeon studio?" So, really quick, true story. It's 1995. I'm with the fam. We having our family reunion down in Orlando, Florida, which is so ironic because I'm in Florida right now.
Right.
Hey,
Full circle.
we were sup- we were supposed to go to Disneyland. That was the plan. We were supposed to go to Disneyland. It would have been my first time going to Disneyland,
Disney World.
or is it Disney World or Disneyland? Because it's Disney World in
Yeah.
Orlando or Disneyland. Like, what is?
You have a Californian here, and so we have Disneyland, and
Okay,
you all in Florida have Disney World.
so it was okay. So it's called Disney World in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, got.
Yeah.
I thought it was the same. I thought it
We have
was
different parks
Disney
and
World.
stuff. Sorry.
See, that's why. See,
California's
that's
got
the
to
thing.
represent. We got
Let me tell
Disneyland.
you something. That's why I always chose Six Flags over Disney World or Disneyland and stuff because because there's one Six Flags over
Right.
Georgia.
That's fair.
Six Flags was my jam back in the day. That's for a different conversation.
Yeah.
But we went to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. I mean, no, we didn't go to. We almost went there. We almost went to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. The tour guide at the time told us that we would have a better time going to Universal Studios because of our age group. So we ended up going to Universal Studios. One of the places that I wanted to go to is the Nickelodeon Studios because Nickelodeon Studios took place on the I'm about to say campus on the property
Yeah.
of Universal Studios. And I finally went inside. I had so much fun. I was a kid now. This is 1995. I had so much fun being inside that studio. I wanted to be one of the actors on
Yeah.
one of the Nickelodeon shows. Um, so
Did
I
you
was
get
this
slimed?
close. Did I what?
Did you get slimed?
I did not get slime. You know what? I thought I got slime, but my mom reminded me that I didn't. I participated in a game
Yeah.
activity that they had for us, but I didn't get slime. Did I wanted to get slime? Yes, I did. I wanted to get slime.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's a fun fact of Sean Garvey. But yeah, that happened in Orlando. And one thing that Melissa Joan Hart I felt was very interesting that she said in a video that went viral when she was asked what were her thoughts on Quiet on the Set. And I thought she answered that very perfectly, by saying that, well, hey, I didn't experience those things that those kids went through and stuff because when I did Clarissa Explains It All, it took place at Orlando. What happened with the child stars with Dan Schneider and all them, that happened in California, in Hollywood. And I think we need to have a different episode, a different conversation next time when we talk about what happens when corporate comes into the picture and everything changes. And that's when you hear all these allegations and these abuse and stuff like that, because now an institution or an organization like Nickelodeon go from being an independent platform
Yeah.
to being corporate, calling it Nickelodeon on Sunset, and all these things happen in what Patty described it as in Hollyweird.
Money. You get money involved, and then,
Yeah.
as we said, he's untouchable. And that's
The root of all evil.
All right. So, Dr. Alexis,
Yeah.
within reason, thank you so much for coming on the Beat Break Morning Show. I know we're out of time, but go ahead and give the viewers and listeners your contact information, how they can get in contact with you for your services, and where can people follow you.
Appreciate you
I've
so
already
much.
written her name down for myself.
Oh, y'all gonna link up. Y'all gonna link up.
It's a witandreason.com, spelled right there in my lower third. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, and a little bit on Facebook at Wit and Reason. So really easy to get in contact with us. I'm going to actually dedicate a whole page to this show, and I want to put these resources out there so you can learn more about grooming behaviors, what to watch out for, what to do if you notice any of these things happen. And this doesn't just happen on set. This happens in families. This happens at school. This happens in religious institutions. And so wherever there are adults and children, we need to be extra intentional.
Okay. And I put the website at the bottom of the screen there. So any of our viewers, you writing this information down, go at the bottom of the screen there. We have your social media. They can follow you there as well, right, Dr. Alexis?
Yeah, my Dr. Alexis Moreno one is like semi-professional. So you'll get some like goofy personal stuff, and then you'll get some professional stuff that I put out there once in a while. But Wit and Reason is where you would find all of our mental health content.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure I put that in the bottom before we exit out the studio. Patty Crawford, you have been such an amazing guest this evening. I know you got some stuff in the works. You want to let the people know just a tease of what you got coming up?
Well, right now I'm just kind of taking it easy. I don't have a whole lot going on. Just working on a couple of music projects. I won't go into detail about that, but that's about it. I had a lot going on a few months ago, so I'm just kind of decompressing right now. But they can go to Instagram.com /Patty.Crawford, and I also have my creative page on Facebook, Facebook.com /Dianara Music. Dianara is the name that I use with my music.
Nice. We definitely be looking forward to.
I'm adding you right now, Patty. Oh wait!
Great.
There we go. I'm gonna put it up on the screen there at Patty.Crawford. There you go. But I was just gonna say we're definitely looking forward to some music, to some great stuff that you're getting ready to do. You know, you're gonna make this thing happen in 2024 and beyond. But I really appreciate you for just being a part of this important conversation, and I look forward to having many more important conversations with you in the near future. Let's go back over. Oh yeah. We definitely gonna talk offline. We definitely gonna talk offline.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Good.
Yeah, and there we go. For those that want to follow Alexis, Dr. Alexis on social media, we have it at the bottom of the screen there at Wit and Reason. So follow there as well on social media, and make sure you tap into her services. And like I said, we definitely gonna do whatever we can to help Wit and Reason. It's so many production studios popping up, and production studios, y'all need her. Y'all need Wit and Reason, because it's all about mental health. And once again, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We're going to continue to embrace it and commemorate it. So definitely make sure you take heed into that. And the number is 988. If you or someone you know is facing some form of mental health crisis, please dial that number 988. They have operators standing by 24/7. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. This has been a very great show, even though it's been a serious topic. You know, it's still very important for us to have this conversation. So, Dr. Alexis Moreno and Patty Crawford, thank you so much for tuning in and coming on the Beat Break Morning Show. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you again. You guys both take care.
Absolutely. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned because we have Soul Dates Live segment coming up. You all would not believe who I am bringing on Soul Dates Live. So, fellas, if you still single, I'm not talking about you guys being in a situationship. I'm talking about single, single like a dollar bill. If you're single, I'm gonna need you all to get ready because we have this beautiful and intelligent woman that's getting ready to come on with me because she is looking for the one. So we call it Soul Dates Live, which is like our show Soul Days Live, but it's a segment now. And she's looking for love in 2024. All right. So stay tuned. We got Soul Days Live coming up with yours truly, Sean Garvey, right here on the Beat Break Morning Show on Honey, the Flow Television Network, as well as on 87 FM, 101 The Vibe FM, and wherever you get your streaming from. Stay tuned. Keep it locked. The Beat Break Morning Show.